Greetings, this is Sorcerer Tal and welcome to my channel. On today's episode of Future Fridays, we will be continuing with the Rune Tarot Spread method, but while we are using the system, I will be discussing the philosophy and theory as to how divination works. Now, our first question will be on a friend of mine and how his new job is going to go. Now, as I discussed in the last episode, some people shuffle the cards 3 times, 5 times, a set amount. To me, what you do is you focus on the question itself, and as you're doing that, you are actually pulling yourself into the line of probability, focusing around that issue. So there has to be some sort of a link, in this case, communication with the person, and you want to fill into that. Actually allow the cards to become part of that link. And as that line of probability is flowing through the cards, that is when you begin shuffling them. And each card has a linked meaning attached to it that then links up with the different potential outcomes in the situation. And as you shuffle them, they are then put into the same line of probability that the situation is affecting, and that is how you get the cards that are intended for the reading. Now, like I said, some people shuffle them 3 times, 5 times. I just do it until it feels ready. I'm gonna have to do it a few more times because I was distracted in explaining to you. So, focus for just a moment here. Okay, now we're doing the first cards of the Celtic Cross again. The identifier card, which in this case is the Knight of Pentacles, and this means that he is just starting out with this new job, and most likely that there's the potential for money there, but we're going to see what covers him and go from there. And we have the Tower on top of that, which is typically not a good card, but it doesn't necessarily mean the job itself. It could mean that there are other issues going on in his situation. So, to check into that, we will go to what lies before, and we have the Wheel of Fortune. And this is what lies before. Ahead, we have a decision to be made with the 8 of Swords. Okay, let's check out our foundation beneath. We have the Magician beneath, which is saying that this person has a lot of talents. There's a lot of things this person can do. He has a lot of abilities and traits, especially in these skilled trades, is what this seems to be saying to me. It is unfair that I know the person a little. And then what is crowning them is vigor and vitality with the 8 of Wands. Okay. Now, we will throw the runes on top of that. And as I said, we want to be linking into the probability and the lines of faith and allowing them, in this case, to go into the bag and affect how the symbols fall into my hand and allow my hand to be placed into that same fate. And we reach and grab. As I said, we do 2 X's. Okay. And we have Quito fell off the board here. That's actually one of my personal runes. It means hidden things, so it's interesting that it fell off the table. We'll come back to that. What we have here is the little gargoyle, which is always about companionship, family, loyalty, friendship. He's kind of looking the other way in this case, though, and it's saying that perhaps there were some things lost when he joined his new situation, but that led to hidden things of growth and all things, and there is a travel to vitality going on here. And we will go down to the center with the, like I said, journey of vitality and growth of all things, which is the growth of all things around them. So that is saying that that not everything bad about this, not everything is bad about this tower. However, there is some kind of heartbreak coming. We might get back into that a little bit in the second reading, and that will actually be good because then I can show how one reading can affect the next. Okay, there's going to be a trouble with communications, but there's some medicine or a catharsis that will come from the understanding of that message that will lead to a decision being made. Now, this needs to get back into the job because a lot of it is focusing on other issues that may come up in the second reading after this. But there is a man over here, and we also have one of the runes of the Rov Ashari that I associate with home, and it's rather like Othila. It's a room of home and hearth, but it's also a room of shelter. But we also have lust over here, but it's not lust for sexual urges, it's lust for the returning of home. Now, up here on the top, we have a hand grasping onto the little heartstone. And this is what comes in the future. We also have the crows. We're going to go back to the Wheel of Fortune and what came behind. There is a crow's foot down here. Technically a chicken's foot, but I call it the crow's foot because it denotes poison or negative things. But we also have the steering wheel steering away from that and to this time of growth and a journey of vitality. So, what has happened here actually is that this reading has taken precedence over the question and it is continuing on to the next question, which I will be asking involving the same person. So, we're going to go ahead and continue on to the next question. It is important to recognize when your set is dealing with a different issue than the question that you actually asked. Because it will do that from time to time, especially if you were reading for someone that you don't know. Then it might pull up a different issue than what the person actually asked because it is what the person really needs to know about. So as far as the job, it is mostly saying that isn't the primary concern right now. There are other things you need to worry about, but it does look like the job itself will probably go well, and there is forward progress there, as well as they will see him understand that he is skilled in what he does. Okay, so we will now continue on to the next question. And this is actually involving a member of that same person's family, and we'll be asking about a person's health. Because it pertains to the first reading, I will say that it is the first person's father. And I suspect that the first reading mostly wanted to talk about that. Okay, so we're going to go through this again. Sometimes I do that just to gauge what I am seeing, and it wasn't quite ready yet. I actually put up the full card, but I was just making assumptions. Okay, so let me link into the proper chain. As I said, we want to focus on the problem. It's important not to let any bias or anything that you want into cards to say to come out into them. You don't want to influence it with your own thoughts or hopes or fears. Instead, just focus on the question. Okay. So, we're now asking about this person's health, thinking their name in my mind, because that is necessary, but I feel that for privacy issues, I probably shouldn't say people's name on a public video. For some reason, the cards absolutely insisted that the identifier card be placed face up, and it is the Three of Pentacles, which often denotes a life's work. And it is covered by the Knight of Cups, which denotes a journey into new place, which often denotes a journey into new places or emotions. What came before, we have the Ten of Cups, and this is often looking towards a bright future, but it also means a homecoming. This means that recently he's perhaps started to realize more about the importance of family. Now, foundation underneath. A lot of people, that's another thing we should discuss. A lot of people read their cards upside down differently than upside right. There's a debate amongst tarot readers. I used to read mine reversed, but I have found, now that I'm amalgamating the two systems, that it is better for me to turn them upright all the time and not acknowledge the reverse. So, down at the bottom, we have the Nine of Wands. And this is saying that there are sometimes jealousy issues with this person. He is someone that was very protective of a certain way of life. And what crowns him is the Ace of Wands, which means that he saw himself as a father. He saw himself as someone that embodied, or tried to be someone that embodied those characteristics that he felt so protective of. Now, what lies ahead? In this case, it is the Three of Wands. That can mean departure, but it also means a time of deep thought, possibly soul searching. So there's not a definitive answer there, other than that this will be a time of soul searching. It's more, this whole thing has been more describing him and his situation so far. So now we will link to that again through the runes and see where this is headed. Do the cross again. Okay. What's interesting is I do have replicant runes in my bag. There's a few things that I have the same rune more than once, such as the rune or sigil I call the cash cow. It's actually Fehu and Taurus put together. It was originally from a money spell. It's a sigil. It fell off the board over here, but is on the board over here. We'll see what that gets to. We're going to start with what came before, and that's this here, and that's saying that he's always been he tried to provide. Sometimes he struggled with that, but he did achieve that, and that's why it's the more solid of the two sigils, standing upright, however slightly off the board, in that he felt that there was struggle with that. And the reason I say he felt they struggled with that is we also have the rune of vision held sideways. In other words, he struggled with believing that he provided enough. He had a tendency to think that he was not, that he had failed in lack of providing for his family. Okay, but he did quite well. Again, it's not fair that I know these people and know that that he did do his best. But the 5, number of foundations, means he did do as best he could and succeeded in that. There is a struggle in his movements. You'll notice that we have the rune of movement upside down, but we also have the charm of journey held next to it, which means that this process he's going through right now is going to be difficult. He is journeying through a time, and he is very much going to want his loved ones near him during this time. In fact, we have the rune of lust, but it is connected to family and companionship as well as marriage, which means he's going to want his wife very closely during this time. And on top of that, we next come over to Othilla, which is actually sitting on top of Esau. And that is good news for this reading. It means hearth and home will stay the same, but it will be a time for him to have really get a better look at what is going on in his life. This will become a time of introspection, but it is followed by the cash cow sigil again, which again is abundance and stability, which means his heart will stabilize at some point. And we also have the turtle down here just as a little reassurance that yes, he is protected. We have the spring of vitality over here. So these two readings together, what they're saying is that this is going to be a troubling time. There's going to be a dramatic upheaval of emotion within the family, but nothing's going to change just yet, except for that this will give him some time to see his life differently and introspect on what is left of his life. Okay, now we have one more reading we're going to do today. I realize tonight's episode is maybe running a bit long, but we do have one more to get to, and this one is actually for demonstration purposes as well. What we are going to be doing a reading on is the hurricane in the Carolinas, Florence. This was a question submitted through the Guild and pertains to a lot of people. Now, the reason that I chose this particular question is to demonstrate some of the possibilities of where a reading can go wrong. As I said before, we are linking into the line of fate and grasping at what is going on. Now, whenever you cast a spell, or in the case of other people, pray, because spell and prayer is essentially the same thing, you are reaching in and affecting them same lines. So, when you are reading about something that is affecting a large amount of people, and especially if you know there are people praying or casting spells about it, you need to take that into consideration during the reading. And it is one of the things that can cause a reading to go off course. So, doing one more reading on the hurricane in Florence. I'll shuffle one more time as I'm linked into that. It's actually quite a strong flow of thought and fate going through there, so it's not hard to link into at all. In fact, my hands feel a little jumpy is the word. They feel a little energized. A lot of people thinking about this issue. Probably not the only one doing a reading on it, I would imagine, in fact. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. The identifier card is Justice. It's an interesting choice. Covered by the Ace of Swords. That is not necessarily a good omen for the storm itself, depending on what comes ahead of that. Because the Ace of Swords is usually a sword of strength and power. Now, let's go to what lies beforehand. King of Swords. Looks like there's going to be a lot of swords in this reading. That makes sense, since swords are the cards of air. And in this case, what's drawing my eye are these clouds and the seagulls here. So that means the storm is coming. It's been at sea, coming in towards us. Let's go down towards its foundations. And we have another ace, the Ace of Cups, water. We're talking about the heating of the water. There's not a lot here that is good omens. In fact, what I can say that so far is that the things that we have done so far to the planet in heating up the water has strengthened this storm. Now, we will go to what crowns it, and we have the gardener, the Seven of Pentacles. In this case, that is again talking about we are the gardeners. We are the ones that are supposed to be maintaining the environment, and we may have not been wearing our crown properly lately. So, let's see what lies ahead. King of Wands. There will be a catastrophe, but there will be this the people will respond to what happens. And this is actually an omen saying that the relief effort may be better than anticipated. So, let's go ahead and do the X on top of that. We can tie this all together. Okay, well, we got some good and some bad here in this. We're going to start in the center here because that's what immediately drew my eye. We have my blue stone, which to me is a stone of strength, foundations, and just base. It's heavy, it's base. And we got this vitality being blocked by those stones. So, as some of you may have already read on the news, this storm is going down in its category so far, and that trend will continue. Now, the people have been holding on to a lot of drama about what's going on. As you'll see, the squirrel hand is holding down the drama. There is poison in that. However, there is a journey to be had, and the people will join together, and that is where this relief that is coming from. That is why the rune of shadow has landed on the King of Wands, because it's not necessarily going to be the government that and FEMA that comes to the aid. It is going to be the people themselves. And interestingly, we have the charm for luck up here in this corner. So with all the, and that could be with all the people that are casting spells towards the storm. I've seen quite a few people posting about sending positive energy towards the storm. Perhaps our brothers and sisters in the storm will get lucky, have extra luck with us sending it to them. And in the end, we have the circle, which is kind of like the Odin's, kind of my version of the Odin's rune, or the blank rune. It is the rune of nothing. So this is going to pass. It's not going to be good, but if the people join together themselves, rather than relying on the obvious choices for protection, then they will make it through just fine. And that is the end of this particular reading. Thank you once again for joining my channel with Future Fridays. I am Sorcerer Tal, bright blessings and an interesting fate.